Hello and welcome to my kitchen. As if on cue, Hoka made her appearance. Welcome, it's Wednesday at 11 a.m. and I am excited to come to you once again with a healthy recipe to add to some of your favorites. I am Julie Brinkley, otherwise known as Motivation with Brink. Find me on Facebook or Instagram. I would love to talk to you more about a healthy plan. But all that aside, guys, I come to you every week because the food that we prepare is easy, simple ingredients, family friendly, that just so happens to follow the guidelines and protocol for an amazing weight loss plan, a 5-in-1 plan that is rock solid and helping people all across the country. Helped myself get out of quarantine pounds that I so quickly was able to find when we were all alone in quarantine. So I would love to talk to you more about that plan, but even if you don't need to lose 1 single pound, these are amazing recipes for every single person. There is not one person that cannot benefit from learning how to make new recipes that are more focused on actually whole foods, great foods, but a balanced sense of protein, carbs, minimal sugars and fats, of course, and using carbs in a healthy way. Carbs aren't horrible. Like, we got to have them. Our brain needs them, okay? But to be able to substitute some things for some other things that are more carb heavy, these are great recipes. So welcome. I would love to hear where you're watching from, except for my husband. I know that he's watching from the living room. And he is like chomping at the bit. I'm sure we love Wednesdays because we get to try some really great food and we usually eat on it for a couple days. So again, my focus for you is to bring these recipes to you that allow you to start a health journey without rocking your world. Because looks like the Wi-Fi is going to be tricky. So if I pause or drag, I'm so sorry. I really don't speak that way, but I feel like it's one of those days we might be draggy. But as always, these recipes and finished photos will be on beneaththesurfacenews.com. Sarah puts it on her blog called The Crumb. If you go to beneaththesurfacenews.com, it is across the top bar. You'll go 3 pages over to The Crumb. You're going to find so many great, all of the archived videos, or not videos, but the archived recipes where they will be there. Also, just check right here on this Facebook page. If you go to videos, you can find almost, we're not there yet, but we're close, to a year's worth of video of this Healthy Wednesday Cooking Live. So enjoy that. If you ever have questions about those recipes, you can message Sarah right here on this page and she can share the link or remind you how to get back to that page, The Crumb. So let's go ahead and get started. Today's focus was all about, guys, life gets in the way. Life is so crazy sometimes. And as hard as we try to fight off busyness, it happens. So I come to you today in complete transparency and honesty that, man, I was kind of behind the 8 ball this morning going, oh my goodness, I've gotten so busy. I've got so much stuff going on. What am I going to cook today? Literally, that's what I said this morning. Like maybe at 8:30, I'm just saying. That's one bonus to being on plan with me. We have a great source of resources for recipes and ideas. And so it took me 2 seconds to look and research and find something that I wanted to try again today for you. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. We are going to use a beef recipe today. As always, if ground beef is not your thing, you could substitute in, actually I've already done that. I substituted in last night leftover fajita chicken that I had grilled with this same recipe. So I'm kind of coming at you backwards. I already know it's really great to substitute in fajita chicken or shredded chicken. I would venture to say you could probably even use canned chicken in this dish. Whatever lean protein you decide, I feel like this dish is going to be a good one. Again, this is one of those comfort foods, okay? If you're watching from Texas, then it's a given. You love Tex-Mex, right? We love those Texas flavors of Rotel and cheddar cheese and those type of indulgent flavors that we're so used to. So why not find it in a healthy lean and green? So that's what we're gonna do today. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and get my 2 pounds of hamburger browning in the pan. Now, I am doubling the recipe. I have a very sweet neighbor who recently had a procedure. And so I'm gonna take this dish. This would make a great dish to take to people, okay? Because wouldn't it feel good if you were sharing out love with somebody, but it just so happened it was healthy? In this situation, I really want these neighbors to like have a really healthy meal. And so this is gonna be a great dish for them. And then I'm gonna have enough for my family as well. So when you check the recipe on the website, it is for 4 servings, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and get that ground beef. I use a 90-10. If you can find a 94-6, that's fine too. With this dish, there you can drain off excess fat. So if you don't have that hamburger that's super lean, then take the time to drain the excess fat. So before I move on, that is browning. This is, again, a spaghetti squash recipe. I know. This is not motivation with spaghetti squash brain. I promise. We make other things. It just seems like the last few weeks I've used spaghetti squash quite a bit. Honestly, it's easy. So if spaghetti squash is not your thing, and I'm not calling out one very special new health coach on my team, but spaghetti squash may not be the best thing for her family, there is always a way to modify, okay? So in this event, if spaghetti squash is not your thing, although it kind of is the Brinkley's thing, we kind of like it. So I'm gonna use spaghetti squash, but the other alternative I would tell you would be an easy, quick substitution would be cauliflower rice, prepared the same way we normally do. However, this next step that I'm about to do, I think is gonna be a game changer. Sometimes the spaghetti squash, can you see this? I left it in the roasting pan because I wanted you to see how it's kind of collapsed down on itself and even discolored here. It's kind of gotten roasty brown. That's fine. I actually probably let this go a little too long. I could have pulled it out probably 10 minutes earlier, but it was just in there. Probably about 25 minutes is all it really needs. Enough to soften to be able to rake it out with a fork. Once again, I'm always reminded to tell you my disclaimer. I am just a home cook. I am not professionally trained. I make mistakes. I don't have sous chefs, although Dana's super great to make last minute runs to Walmart when our dog eats the hamburger. Today we guarded it like hawk. But anyway, I probably let this go a little bit longer, but look at this, guys. It's super ready to just shred out of here, okay? But it's super moist. It's got lots of water in it, okay? So what I wanna do now is I'm gonna actually take this spaghetti squash and put it into the baking dish that I will be serving the dishes in, and I'm gonna stick them back in the oven. I want it to kind of cook out that extra moisture and get that water out, not so it's dry or cooked or crunchy, but I want that texture to come back, and it's kind of gonna really mimic a spaghetti noodle if we do that, instead of getting a little bit too mushy and having too much water in the bottom of your dish. I noticed that last night when I did the chicken version, so we want to be sure and see if we can remedy that. So I do have the oven on, and I'm just going to take a quick spray into these dishes because I don't want anything to stick. Now this recipe calls for 4.5 cups each of each recipe. And what I'm doing is splitting one recipe and then one recipe into this. I would say 4.5 cups is easily a medium-sized spaghetti squash. Now, if you were on 5-in-1, there's no guessing. You know that. Measure, measure, measure. This falls under the do as I say, not as I do. In maintenance, or if you're just looking for healthy alternatives, does it really affect it? Probably not. You're okay. You can guesstimate what you need here. But if you are on 5-in-1, I would recommend that you accurately measure your spaghetti squash, because not every spaghetti squash is created equal. You know that in size. What I actually did here was I had a larger one and I had kind of a medium sized one. And what I did is I took a half of the small one and a half of the large one to do that. I'm gonna create this layer of spaghetti squash, and I'm gonna go ahead and return this to the oven. Now, the recipe states to mix all of this together and then do it, but I really want this to be a little drier. So I'm gonna stick it in the oven. Let me just stir my hamburger. I'm using my little hot plate today because I realized I always have to turn my back on you way over here. So we're trying, but I have to set it on this side because it's so loud. So again, home kitchen, have some grace, hashtag be nice, right? So next step is, this makes a great dish, guys. You could do this ahead of time and even keep it in the fridge for the week and eat on it. I have a couple clients, I'm always recommending that too. Have those meals ready to heat up. Or I would think this one would actually freeze well. I would probably save the top cheese and add that later, and I would thaw it in the refrigerator. I wouldn't put it in the oven frozen. So we're gonna take half of this next batch of spaghetti squash and split it between these two, and also get these in the oven. Again, this step is not in the recipe. This is for you bonus people that are watching. It is just one of those things I have found that with spaghetti squash, there is quite a bit of moisture. And so I didn't like seeing all of the juice at the bottom. I thought it kind of diluted the flavor last night. So we do want to go ahead and, I also needed to tell you this. I don't add any extra oil or fats to the spaghetti squash. I don't find it's necessary. They'll roast up just fine without it. You could do a little salt and pepper. That wouldn't hurt the spaghetti squash when you put it in there and put it face down. But I have found that, you know, in life, much like this plan, little 1 degree of change, micro itty bitty habits of change over a period of time, and you just don't miss it. So one of the things I've noticed is I do take the time to figure out, like, where can I cut, like if I cut back, do I even notice that I didn't use that extra healthy fat? I don't. So that's an easy way to make those type of habits stick. So I'm gonna get these dishes back into the oven. Again, I had that up on 400. I could actually probably turn it off right now and just let it sit in a hot oven while I'm making the rest of the dish. I turned it down to like 350. Again, I don't want it to really bake. I just want it to dry out. And so we're gonna move on. The next step, we've got our ground beef cooking. So the next thing, we're gonna add a green bell pepper. And so I chose green today. We've talked about this a lot. And I love to use the colored bell peppers, which are more expensive if I'm doing a stuffed bell pepper. But when I'm adding it into something and I just really need that flavor, then I'm good to save a little bit and just use the standard green ones. And I just cut this in half. I'm gonna take out the seeds and the membranes as much as I can. I believe the amount on this is, let's see, 1/4 cup. So honestly, for 5-in-1, you realize on 5-in-1, everything is in moderation, but it's all measured. It's all accounted for. So it's not like, oh, it's a vegetable, just have all you want, right? Because guess what? These things have carbs, and so it's a balance. It's a really balanced way of learning what healthy can look like. There you go. So we're just gonna chop, if you are on 5-in-1, remember, 1/4 cup is 1/4 cup. Isn't that right? Fourth a cup? Is that what I said? Yes, fourth cup. So for my dish, I would be adding a full half of a cup because I've got it doubled. And since I know I am actually making this dish for somebody that is not on a 5-in-1 plan, this is still going to be a beautifully healthy meal for them. I might go a little bit over, just not to waste. Every little bit you can not waste. I mean, why not if you don't need it? But if you are 5-in-1, you should really be mindful of that. That's probably the total amount that I need right there, but I'm going to go ahead and chop this one up. I do give my chicken friends some of my scrap, but they don't really need like a whole bell pepper, so they're not living that kind of life for sure. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to address is I get this added. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this into the hamburger as it finishes browning because I want those peppers. For those of you that aren't pepper fans, again, get that bell pepper in there soon enough that it cooks down and you don't have that crunch, because that's typically what that you don't like. So I think if you let it cook down enough, you will find that this will be a perfect blend. Again, this is 2 recipes. Okay, that's cooking. So we're good to go. Next up, we're gonna add our favorite go-to ingredient, Rotel. And I just have to stop for a second to also address one thing. And I was so thankful for this dear friend to be honest with me. Because she's like, Julie, you cook fancy. And I was like, no, I don't. Like, I mean, I love to cook fancy. I can cook fancy, but I don't ever think of 5-in-1 lean and green meals as fancy. I think of them as like necessary and flavorful and indulgent in some cases, but I never thought of it as fancy. So I just want to encourage you, don't feel like, oh my gosh, that 5-in-1 plan she talks about, you have to be like really into cooking and you have to do all of the things. Guys, you don't. It can be as simple protein, simple approved vegetables, go with it, okay? It can be that simple. And that's actually what she shared with me. She was like, you know what? I'll be honest. When I started Plan, I didn't do your recipes. And I was like, really? Why? Like, I sent you all those favorite recipes that I thought you should be trying. And she's like, no, I don't cook that way. Like, that's that's too many things. And so I just encourage you, don't feel overwhelmed. But if you're missing something that makes it easier to bring more variety into your home cooking, then these are great dishes to do that. But definitely not a requirement on 5-in-1. You can make it simple, even more simple than Mexican spaghetti squash casserole. We're going to add these 2 cans of Rotel into the hamburger meat. Again, I am doubling the recipe. Just keep that in mind. We're going to let that continue to cook. Some of the juice down out of the Rotel, and the bell peppers are going to cook. Again, we only really have to make sure that the hamburger is cooked through, because this is going into the oven to finish off roasting up those bell peppers. Those flavors will kind of join together. So what we're going to do now, and I do have to grab a bowl. This is the part that I remind you. I don't always have it all together. Sometimes I forget I needed a bowl. So in this bowl, we're going to mix together, this is one of my favorite things to keep on hand, is the enchilada sauce. Guys, could we make it by homemade to keep it cleaner? Maybe. But guys, it's really not. I take a minute to look. There is 1 gram of sugar, but no additional sugars. Be sure you're looking. This brand, not that I'm a supporter, okay? But this brand just so happens it's the least sugar. There's one other brand that I've seen in local stores, and sometimes there is additional sugar. So just be mindful when you're looking to find things like Rotel tomato. Actually, the other thing I discovered, Rotel tomatoes actually have less sugar or less carb than the tomatoes that are just diced tomatoes that I had in the pantry. So again, just that 1% of change in your mind. Be more mindful. Look at labels. Find out, is there a tomato sauce or tomatoes that is a better option for me to try? Do it. In a few years, you'll never think again about not checking those type of things out. So it's a half a cup, I believe, of the enchilada sauce. So we're adding a full cup. And then also using one of my favorite things, and that is the Greek yogurt. Now this makes a great way to purchase the Greek yogurt. It's about 3/4 of a cup though, and we needed a half a cup for each. So I have had to use 2 with a little bit extra. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that together. Let me get a spatula. This is gonna be so great because when we use Greek yogurt in our recipes, it not only gives us this sense of creaminess that sometimes when we're on a weight loss plan, we're kind of missing that rich, creamy, saucy food. My girls love that about me, that I love sauces. Like sauces are my favorite thing. So I love being able to add Greek yogurt. The double-edged sword is it also is a portion of our protein in this dish. And that's the beautiful thing about Plan, is that you start looking at food differently. And that's the magic. There's no other magic, easy, quick fix or magic pill or supplement that you take that makes your fat magically disappear. The only magic comes in learning more about the food you put in your mouth. And that's what's been so great. Now, we also get to do really indulgent things like cream cheese. Cream cheese, it's not like so much cream cheese that, you know, you're having so many fats every day. It's the third less fat one. Okay, I don't choose the fat-free one because this is considered part of my healthy fat, but the third less fat is a good option. I have had it out softening. This is 3 tablespoons. I've doubled it because I have 2 recipes, but 3 tablespoons of cream cheese. Guys, that was the eye-opener for me when I realized that I could do these indulgent ingredients that I loved in cooking just in moderation. Like, just use a little bit of cream cheese. It still actually has a very powerful effect on your dish without so much of the guilt. So we're making, already guys, I can smell this sauce. Look at that. I mean, this is a way to cook, guys. This is easy, quick, simple things. I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon. It's half a teaspoon if you're making one recipe. I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of chili powder. Now I didn't salt my spaghetti squash or the beef, so I am going to take a minute for the little salt and pepper. That's not necessarily the coach in me, that's just the cook in me that knows we should salt a little bit of our protein there, not excessively. So we have mixed together. Let me just make sure we're gonna, it says in the recipe, this will be a little lumpy. It's a few lumps. Those things will melt right down and combine when we add it into this beef mixture. We've already got the bell pepper, the Rotel, and the hamburger meat cooking down. And so we want to do that. If you did not have a super lean protein, then you're gonna wanna take a minute before you add the veggies and the Rotel and drain off the excess fat, okay? Also, if you are a game meat person, this would be great with venison or other elk or other buffalo if you eat buffalo. Those game meats are super lean, and so that's a really great option, especially if you're on 5-in-1. You know what I'm talking about because those extra lean whitefish, shrimp, game meat, those are the leanest proteins and allow for a little bit more healthy fat. So that's often a fun addition. So we've got that ready. We've got our pan. Let me get this over here. We've got this cooked through. I'm gonna stir just to combine that chili powder all throughout. And I just use regular chili powder, nothing special. You can use a blend. Just double check your blends, guys. We talk about that. Double check your blends. Make sure there's no sugar or additional salts added. Oftentimes we find, I'm gonna let that heat up just a little bit more before I add the sauce. This sauce is ready to go. Now I think they want us to top, yeah, we're just gonna use a little bit of low fat Colby Jack. This is just a shredded blend. You get the 2% version. Again, when we add cheeses like that, guys, again, it is all proportioned in there for part of your protein. It's not the leanest protein because it is cheese, but it is accounted for. So we're going to go ahead and take out our spaghetti squash. If you can see here, I don't think you'll be able to see it. I still see a lot of liquid at the bottom. So I'm going to turn this back in here and crank that up just a little bit because I really want that to dry out. And so we'll go ahead and take this, our meat mixture. Again, this is lean ground beef, bell pepper, chili powder, and a can of Rotel tomatoes. Are you catching my drift here, guys? These are all easy breezy things to add to your grocery list for the week and then be ready. Like, you don't have to be surprised. Actually, that's kind of what happened to us last night. I wasn't prepared. I'm telling you, this week has been a killer. But when I really sit down and, like my mama used to say, practice what I preach, I was able to whip up some dinner last night. Miraculously, I was like, you know what? I kind of wanted to use this. I had a spaghetti squash sitting on the counter. We had leftover chicken. I had these things on hand and we whipped up a really great dinner. And I thought, you know what? This is what it's about. So again, don't be overwhelmed with cooking healthy. It doesn't have to be hard. Now, again, I will go ahead and explain. On the recipe, it says to mix all of this together. I really want to have this nestled on top of a bottom layer of spaghetti squash. I don't want everything mixed together. I know some people are kind of funny about mixing things and having one big casserole type dish. Also with this, at this point right here, this filling, if I was gonna modify this for family, let's say I have a really special little 14-year-old that isn't a super fan of spaghetti squash. But I'm telling you what, if I saved out some of this topping, this protein topping, and used some microwavable brown rice in a little dish for him, he'd be golden. Guys, he'd put this away. So that's probably what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna save back just a little bit because this will be a great dish for Harrison. So if you have Harrison in your life that isn't a super fan of some of the vegetable modifications that you've made, maybe in an attempt to have a more healthy, balanced diet for your family, then that's a good option. Now, that being said, I make my kids try everything. Like, they're gonna try spaghetti squash. I just know that he doesn't devour it. Like, he's kind of being wasteful because he kind of picks around on it. And so I would actually do it just for that reason because he can afford to have some healthy grains in his diet. In fact, he needs it. So that would be a great option. So I've mixed together this beautiful, indulgent, Tex-Mex smelling flavors. Okay, we're gonna set that to the side. I'm gonna grab out our dish of spaghetti squash. And I am just gonna eyeball it here. Again, if you're cooking this for yourself on 5-in-1, one recipe is 4 servings. So in your 9x9, you would of course quarter that dish and that would be your serving size. Great way to have multiple meals for the next day. If you're not sharing with anyone at home, that would be it would be a really great dish for you to do. So we're gonna take a minute and just spoon out. And I'm gonna actually leave a little bit of that spaghetti squash showing around the sides because I want that to continue to cook, not really brown up, but I want it to cook too. I don't wanna cover it all the way. You could almost make it where I didn't do that, but you could almost like push it up on the sides like a little crust, a spaghetti squash crust, and let this sauce kind of go to the middle. Okay, we're gonna eyeball it at that. Now we're gonna take half. This cheese was actually 2/3 of a cup of shredded 2%. And so I have already measured out double that. So I'm gonna take half of each of these. And I also find, guys, this is another one of those little 1% changes. Give yourself the ability to pull back. Like right there, I could have actually put a little bit more cheese on it, but I really think this will be enough. Start practicing that. Like what could you go with and you'd still be completely satisfied? I find that when I talk to my clients about water intake, when I talk about how are they drinking their coffee in the morning, that's one of my best strategies, is to just continually pull back a little bit. Welcome to the party late, Tana Beth. I wish you were here and I would share this yummy casserole with you. But this will be a good one. I think even your kids would like it. This would be something too you could think about, guys. I put Rotel tomatoes. Guys, if Rotel is too spicy, even the mild version, which sometimes it is in the Brinkley house for a couple of my friends, then just use diced tomatoes and then top your own with a little extra pickled jalapeno or something to give you some heat. That was brought up this week by my sweet new health coach. And she said, you know, she found that when you're having spaghetti squash, sometimes it helps to bring up the heat a little bit. I find that with healthy eating altogether, like you just want more flavor and you want to enjoy those spices even more so than you did before. So we're gonna return this dish to the oven. It'd be great to add a little cilantro on the top if you're a cilantro fan. A little diced green onion would also be a great garnish. But this is gonna be an amazing meal for my family and a perfect meal to deliver to a neighbor in need. So I hope this recipe makes the grocery list this week because I guarantee you will love it. Again, this protein, not locked into just hamburger, whatever you have in the fridge. I used leftover fajita chicken that we had grilled the night before, and it was a perfect addition. So if you would like to know more about a 5-in-1 plan that can not only just teach you how to eat healthy, but possibly be a weight loss plan for you, I would love to help you and love to talk to you about it. You can message me on Facebook or find me right here on Beneath the Surface. And until next time, be nice.